So, what can we expect now that this anti-terrorism bill has been signed into law? Let's find out the pros and cons of this controversial initiative from Ronald Mendoza, the Dean of the Ateneo School of Government. Dean, thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word. Looking through the provisions of this anti-terrorism law, will it really stamp out terrorism?
Well, first of all, Rico, thank you for the chance to share ideas on this law. We try to be as independent and sort of evidence-based in our analysis of this particular legislation. And it does appear to include a few powers that expand the powers of our national security sector compared to the Human Security Act of 2007. I think part of this has to do with essentially allowing our national security agencies to monitor potential terrorists. There is also a broader definition of what might be considered as terrorism, as well as measures that have been removed, safeguards that were actually attached to the Human Security Act of 2007, which I understand is no longer attached to this particular law. These were some of the penalties in case some of the applications of the law were on mistaken identities. So you could actually receive some penalties for this.
Because, Dean, Mendoza, a lot of critics are saying that this anti-terrorism law is even worse than martial law because it can be misused and abused by this government.
Well, that's the catch-22, right? Our national security sector requires our support and requires additional powers in order to effectively counter terrorism in the country. However, the question is whether these institutions have the discipline and the accountability to use that power and discretion effectively against the terrorists and not against our own people. And that, I think, is the debate right now, is that many people are concerned that the very institutions that will be tasked to implement the law are also those with, right now, a little bit of a history of human rights abuses, governance failures, links to extrajudicial killings, and so on and so forth. So I think this is the challenge in terms of thinking about this law, is we need to empower our national security sector. On the other hand, are these institutions disciplined enough to use the power properly?
But do you think the institutions are disciplined enough to be able to safeguard the human rights of Filipinos?
Well, I think, to be fair, it's not even a question of whether they are. It's a question of whether there is trust in their ability to achieve that. And right now, judging from the reactions to this law, there is a lack of trust and a great deal of division among our people, showing concern that the power and the discretion given by the law may actually be abused. And you don't need to look too far. Actually, if you look at several incidents, such as red tagging, such as the recent incident in Jolo, for instance, where state agents actually mistook or appear to have mistaken other state agents for being, something other than members of the armed forces.
Because there's really no trust at this point, because even the United Nations Human Rights Commission is saying that this is blurring criticism, criminality, and terrorism.
Yes, well, the thing is, in fairness to the legislators who crafted the law, they appear to have looked at other international laws to combat terrorism. But the challenge there is they seem to have made the assumption that the institutions that will be implementing this law in the Philippines are the same as those institutions out there implementing anti-terrorism laws in countries like the United States, Australia, Canada, and other places. So the challenge with us is we cannot think of this anti-terrorism law as the main solution to countering terrorism in the country. We need a holistic reform agenda that actually strengthens our institutions, strengthens accountability with or without this anti-terrorism law.
We'll have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your insights, Dean Ronald Mendoza from the Ateneo School of Government.